G'day. I'm going to talk about this Yeti, and there's a project going on here today because Brent's going to hook up this brand new Axial from SSD, and we're going to fit it onto the Yeti here. You guys already know I've got the centered metal head Axial on the Yeti right now, and so we're going to switch it out to this SSD Axial and see what we get as far as geometry and how the thing swings on the travel and all that stuff. So these are actually pretty nice. This is their kind of a spider style. It's a solid aluminum housing. So the nice part about these is that there's no hardware or anything going into the Axial tubes. So you end up with this one solid piece which is just bomb proof. And everybody knows you're going to pound this thing really hard on your U4 track, and so it's really nice to have a solid one-piece housing. And I'm kind of impressed that SSD was able to take this on and create something that was this sort of beefy, and yet it's still, you know, very nice small tubes and scale looking. So these are kind of handy because like our metal heads, they also have the same kind of mounting face on the front of the tube, so you can just put the stock Axial mounts right on it. And then they've got the Axial truss on the top molded right in, blended right into the housing here, so that's pretty slick. And then of course on these SSD units, the third member just sits right in like this, and you can reverse it if you have to change the direction of your housing. So of course this is really designed for a Wraith, but I'm going to stick it in my Yeti here because that's the first project I wanted to work on. And we're also going to put in the 2-speed conversion here from the SSD, and this is going to add first gear into the Yeti transmission. So it comes with servo mounts and all the different gears that go in there, and so I'm kind of excited to get this buggy going with a 2-speed and a beautiful SSD housing. And look for an update on this in just a minute. So we're getting there. We got the Axial swapped out, and the metal head is now empty, and we've got some guts in the SSD housing. That looks pretty straightforward. Cool. So the bearings just fit right in, and then there's a cap that goes on the end there. Oh yeah, look at that. That's pretty easy. And then the you know, this is a really great feature on this thing. The pinion actually uses the big bearing, the 5x13 bearing, instead of the 5x11 original Wraith size, you know what I mean, the small bearing. So this is a really nice upgrade, and the 2 bearings actually come included in the rear Axial kit, so that's just awesome. And of course it's a centered housing, so can't beat that. More in a minute. So we got the centered diamond Wraith rear Axial on the buggy here now. Have a look at that. That's really nice. It's tidy. It looks clean. It's going to look great on our Yeti there with our red trim and black. We added a set of GCM links up top here that you can barely see because we like black, you know, and the plastic uppers just weren't going to cut it. So we've got a set of aluminum uppers on the top, and they measured out to be 106 millimeters rod plus 2 Revo rod ends, one on each end. And then of course we did the link mounting on the bottom of the 3 holes here. You see that there's 3 options, and we use the bottom one, and that gives you a pretty decent triangulation on the links from here to the top link pointing down and the bottom link pointing up. And the end result is a pretty decent pinion angle. I'll try to show that off. There you can see the pinion is just a little bit down on the shaft, and as the suspension drops, the pinion angle straightens out until we've got an almost perfectly straight pinion angle. You can kind of see it in there. So I'm pretty satisfied with the geometry on this, and the nice part is that because this top link here is all machined right in, It's a super uber solid, like, I mean, this thing is just rock solid. There's no extra pieces or hardware, so it's pretty nice. No real hang-ups on the back. I have one little concern with the hang-ups on the front, because if you see the way that the front housing is, the front third member, it's kind of got a bit of a flat spot on the front, and so we'll have to check it out on the rocks and see how it actually is during you know, rock racing and stuff, but it appears that there might be a bit of a hang-up on the front of the diff case, just because there's a bit of a flat there. But nothing a little high power throttle shouldn't fix. So there's the install we've done on the back of this Yeti here. We've got the centered diamond Wraith axle put on it from SSD. And make sure you check out their fantastic products. We have it right here in the store. The link is below. And enjoy. So we changed up the suspension setup here on the Yeti. Have a look at this. So right here is where the top of the shock used to be, and the bottom used to be here. So we moved it to the back hole, and the back hole there on the frame. And when the shocks are full extension now, the buggy actually sits pretty much flat as a pancake. And the drive shaft angle is just yummy, like this. And why would you do this? Well, a couple reasons. You don't have the dropout now. Like when I lift up the back of the buggy, the wheels come right off the ground. See that? Which means that that's as tall as it's going to get in the back. And that's going to give it tons and tons of stability when you're on the side hills and stuff doing your rock racing. The drive shaft angle is actually better because it doesn't drop out so far. So that's really nice. You can see we've got the SSD diamond centered axle on the back. And I like this setup a lot. So you still get full compression on it. You can drop that right down till the shocks are right at the bottom. No problem. And it's still not hitting the ground. No problem. The pinion angle remains really nice. You can see it in here through the whole travel. And so now we finally have an opportunity to have a little bit more control over the roll rate on this Yeti, and really looking forward to that. And our next phase of this upgrade is going to be the 2-speed from the SSD. We're going to drop that right in here and give us a first gear so we can do a little more rock crawling with our stock electronics. And stay tuned. Yeti 2-speed. Time to get some SSD parts on our Yeti build. And there's something missing in the middle here. Brent's got it pretty much tore into a whole bunch of pieces right now. There's little bits of Yeti all over the place, and we're working on getting this 2-speed kit installed, and it's really cool because this, you take off this little cover here and the servo fits in there with the SSD mounts, and so and then you just drop that sucker right back in. And I'm pretty excited. So pretty soon we're gonna have a 2-speed Yeti. Oh yeah. Hard to believe it was that easy, but there's the main shaft there. And basically all you got to do is add this arm here with the E-clip, and the slider goes in, and then you replace this, put this gear in, and you put the bearings on the right spots and stuff like that. Brent's gooing up the main top shaft here, and that's white grease all over it because that's gonna keep it from turning into a molten mash. I love this new dual slipper clip clutch thing that they've got going on here too, and that's definitely, we can set that up to make sure that the rest of the drivetrain doesn't explode. Ought to be handy. And this whole thing is going to drop back in the case there in just a second, so that ought to be interesting. It's done! Yay! So a couple of tips and tricks here. I already talked to you about the rear suspension setup, where we moved the shock to the back hole. We moved this shock to the back hole. So instead of having twin shocks, we've actually got one, but we moved it rearward. That'll give you a whole bunch of stability and dropout on the suspension, and that's awesome. And then my servo setup is a little wonky donkey because I like these Z-bend metal rods. I've been doing that a lot. You've probably seen that on my AX2 SCX10 that I built. I like it. I don't know what to say. I'm going to take it out and get it really dirty so that you can't see any of this red stuff. It needs mud, all that stuff on it. So time to get a giant battery in there and go out and give it a big flogging. And guys, you don't need a high power servo in here either. This is a SF1 HPI. This is probably equivalent to a low end Futaba, sort of a stock, you know, plastic gear servo. And the arm doesn't swing very far either. It goes like from here to here. So I set my third channel endpoints to about 20% on each side, and then I put my little arm, my little rod on here, and then I adjusted the endpoints from center to something like 36 and 28 or something like that. So if you start with really low endpoints and then center the servo, you'll get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's enough to shift the gears. And then just check to make sure you're not banging it on the end stop all the time. So your servo is not dragging current out of your receiver. Don't forget receiver boxes in the bottom, right there in that sort of weird little cover on the bottom. So make sure you have it sealed up properly with the rubber grommets that are inside. And yeah, so time to put some Yeti on the trails.